Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to tell you, usually when we sit down to sort through these source materials, I have a pretty clear idea of the roadmap.
Right, we usually know where north is.
Exactly. We look at a historical text or maybe a scientific paper, and we can orient ourselves. But today, I think we might be stepping completely off the map.
It is definitely one of the most eclectic and, frankly, esoteric collections of sources we have ever put on the table.
Eclectic is putting it mildly. We have a stack of documents here that looks like someone took a deck of cards made out of different centuries and just sort of shuffled them together.
And maybe mixed in a few different dimensions while they were at it.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just set the scene for you so you can understand the sheer gravity and the absolute weirdness of what we are dealing with today. First up, we have a digital manifesto that was pulled from the Internet Archive titled The King's Doctrine.
A very modern hyper-digital format for a royal proclamation.
Right. And then right next to it, we have a hand-drawn diagram from a diary. And the date on this diagram is Tuesday, February 24th, 2026.
Which, relative to the actual creation of the document, is a date from the future.
A message from next year.
Yeah.
And then anchoring all of this modern digital strangeness, we have translations of two incredibly dense, serious ancient grimoires, the Key of Solomon and the Sword of Moses.
So we are literally spanning thousands of years in one deep dive. We are jumping from the dusty, candlelit libraries of antiquity where people were genuinely terrified of demons straight into the digital archives of the near future.
Where a man is essentially claiming to be the Messiah via a PDF.
It is a massive collision of worldviews.
It sounds like total chaos,
Yeah.
I know. But our mission today is to find the thread that actually ties all of this together. Because the goal is to really contemplate the patterns from the modern Holy Bible and the true tree of life.
And we have to do that specifically in the context of the doctrine of His Majesty King Tyson J. Arthur James Bond, Best Pendragon Palmer, Dei Gratia Rex of England.
Okay, we need to pause right there. James Bond,
Yes.
Arthur Pendragon,
That too.
and Dei Gratia Rex of England, by the grace of God King.
It is an incredible mouthful, but every single one of those names is doing very heavy lifting in the text. He is not just throwing pop culture references around for the fun of it. He is building a highly specific, intricate identity.
You see James Bond in a royal title, and your first instinct is to just chuckle, right? It sounds like an internet prank.
It sounds like a meme.
Totally. But then you read the rest of the document,
Yeah.
and it is deadly serious about spiritual authority.
Mm-hmm.
And he is very specific about the breakdown of his names. He explicitly writes Tyson Jay Palmer, Theophilus James Peter, TJP, for three-letter initials.
That detail, the TJP for three-letter initials, is something we are going to circle back to when we get into the ancient magic because it is structurally crucial.
Right. And he continues, I'm also known as King James VII of England, or Arthur Pendragon once, and future King of England. Signed, Tyson Jay Palmer, Dei Gratia Rex.
So you have this modern claim to the throne of England, the identity of a fictional super spy, and a spiritual entity named Sananda all mashed together.
Which brings us to the hook for today. The big question I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go down this rabbit hole. How does this extremely modern, complex claim connect to ancient rituals for summoning spirits and the Kabbalistic tree of life?
It fundamentally comes down to a question of authority and methodology. How do you access the divine?
Do you summon it with fear and trembling, complex geometric circles like the ancients did in the Key of Solomon?
Or do you simply embody it with a digital proclamation like our modern source does?
Exactly. Now, before we really jump into the deep end, I need to give our standard disclaimer. We are impartial guides here.
We are just looking at the blueprints.
Right. We are reporting strictly on the content provided in these documents.
Uh-huh.
We're analyzing the internal logic, the claims, the theological connections.
We are definitely not endorsing this claim to the British throne.
Nor are we suggesting you go out into your backyard and try to summon ancient spirits with a hazel wand.
Please do not do that.
We are here to map the territory, not to colonize it. And frankly, when you look at the Sword of Moses, some of this territory is clearly marked high voltage.
Very high voltage.
So let's unpack this. We have to start with the man himself. Who is King Tyson Jay Palmer? Because the King's Doctrine is not shy about telling us.
No, it is a very bold text. This document serves as a direct royal proclamation. The author, TJP, lays claim to a very specific lineage of archetypes. Let's look at King James VII of England.
Historically, the Stuart line was interrupted with James II, who was also James VII of Scotland. So by claiming James VII, he's implying a massive historical restoration, isn't he?
Precisely. It implies a Jacobite restoration. He is skipping over centuries of the current royal succession and claiming a direct link back to the Stuarts. But he does not stop at political history. He immediately conflates it with Arthur Pendragon,
The once and future king.
which elevates the claim from a political sovereignty to a mythological one. He is tapping into the deep British legend that Arthur returns when England needs him most.
And then he throws the absolute curveball.
Mm.
James Bond. Talk to me about that. Is he saying he is literally a secret agent working for MI6?
Within the internal logic of the text, it seems to function as another archetype, the modern archetype of the hero or the protector. Think about the cultural weight that the name James Bond carries.
He protects the ground. He operates entirely outside the standard rules.
He has a license to kill, which is essentially a form of ultimate executive authority. If Arthur is the ancient mythical defender, Bond is the modern secular one.
So he is synthesizing pop culture with royal history.
He is saying, I am the ancient king and the modern hero. It is a very deliberate way of updating the software of kingship for the 21st century.
And let's not forget the Theophilus James Peter breakdown for the TJP initials.
This is deeply tied to the mystical elements we will discuss later. In the Solomonic and Mosaic texts, power is almost always encoded in three-letter roots.
Like the Tetragrammaton or similar divine names.
Exactly. TJP is inserting himself into that ancient magical structure. Theophilus literally means friend of God or lover of God. James means supplanter. Peter means rock.
Lover of God, supplanter rock. He is building an entire theology just out of the etymology of his name.
But the claims go way beyond earthly titles. This is where the document shifts from a quirky political manifesto into a major spiritual claim. The doctrine asserts that he is the physical vessel for Sananda.
And we need to clarify for you listening in this specific text, Sananda is explicitly understood to be the returning Christ.
The text literally says, Sananda is Tyson. The Lord has come in this form.
And there is that incredibly specific Japanese phrase dropped right into the middle of the document. It really stands out because the rest of the text is in English. Kanada wa Taisonda. Manata kataga.
Yes, the translation the author provides right next to it is Sananda is Tyson. The Lord has come in this form.
Why Japanese? It seems so random at first glance.
The text does not explicitly explain the linguistic choice, but structurally it gives the proclamation a highly global, almost syncretic flavor. It anchors this massive spiritual revelation in a very specific modern cultural aesthetic.
Like an anime aesthetic almost.
A sort of techno-animism, yes. And he mixes it seamlessly with Maranatha.
Which is Aramaic.
Exactly. From the early Christians, it translates to our Lord come or our Lord has come.
So just visualize this linguistic layer cake. You have Japanese grammar wrapping around an ancient Aramaic core, declaring a modern English man with a pop culture middle name to be the physical vessel of Christ.
It is a linguistic fusion that perfectly mirrors the fusion of identities he is claiming.
So what is the actual core philosophy here? If he's the king and the vessel and the once and future spy, what is he telling his subjects to do? Because usually when someone claims to be the returning Messiah, it involves a lot of judgment, fire, and brimstone.
That is the massive contrast here. The central theme of the king's doctrine is Maranatha, but interpreted to mean that the victory is already completely finished. It is fundamentally a philosophy of rest.
Rest. I mean, that sounds pretty nice.
It is a radical rejection of spiritual struggle. The document explicitly states it is not a call to separation. It invites the reader to understand life, art, and spirit as one continuous, unbroken truth.
So the argument is essentially that the hard part is over.
Precisely. The text formally rejects what it calls sin consciousness. It argues that, yes, rules were broken, which is what sin is, but that Jesus, and now the returning king in the form of Palmer, has fixed that separation completely.
Harmony is just restored. Full stop.
You do not have to fight for it anymore. You just have to acknowledge it.
And it says humanity may now rest, released from the endless struggle for worth. That is the king's doctrine. It is a royal decree of peace.
Which is a profound pivot from the intense labor we were going to see in the ancient texts.
But before we go back in time, we really need to look at the visual component of this modern doctrine. Because TJP did not just write a manifesto, he drew a map.
And this brings us to the diary diagram.
Right. We are looking at a file from the source stack named 100.000.2382.jpg. It is a photograph of a page from a lined diary, hand-drawn in marker.
And the date written at the top is very specific. Tuesday, 24th February, 2026. Memo No 2026.
It is a diagram of the tree of life. But if you know anything about Hermeticism or Kabbalah, it is not the standard one you see in the textbooks.
It is a highly stylized variation of the Kabbalistic tree of life, the Sephiroth. Standard Kabbalah has 10 spheres or emanations through which the infinite reveals itself to the finite world. This diagram takes that ancient geometric structure and maps a specific English sentence onto it.
The sentence is, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth."
Let's walk through the visualization so you can picture it. Imagine 3 vertical columns of circles connected by paths. At the very top, where you usually have Keter, which is the crown, the diagram simply says in.
In, the absolute point of origin.
Then as you move down the tree to where you usually have Chokmah for wisdom and Bina for entity, understanding the circles are labeled the and beginning.
So reading downward in the beginning.
Exactly. The flow continues down. The central yellow circle, which is usually Tifreth or beauty, says God.
In the beginning, God.
And it continues cascading down to the very bottom green circle, Malkuth, the kingdom, which is labeled Earth.
So it literally flows structurally from in to God all the way down to Earth. It takes the universe and turns it into a sentence structure.
It connects the actual act of creation directly to physical reality. It is arguing that the structure of the universe is this exact sentence, but there is a very disturbing detail right in the middle of the drawing.
You mean the red circle?
Yes. Between the upper triad of circles and the rest of the tree, there is a red circle labeled the portal.
And there is smaller writing underneath that.
It says cosmic abyss.
The cosmic abyss. That sounds incredibly ominous. In traditional Kabbalah, that location corresponds to Da'at, doesn't it? The hidden knowledge.
Usually, yes. Da'at is considered the false Saphaya. It is the gulf, the abyss, between the divine ideal of the supernals and the actual physical manifestation of the rest of the tree.
It is the place where the head essentially disconnects from the body.
And it is heavily associated with the fall or the knowledge of good and evil. But here in this 2026 diagram, it is specifically labeled as a portal.
And it is colored red.
Red usually symbolizes blood life or alchemical fire. If we synthesize this visual map with Palmer's written doctrine, remember he claims to be the physical vessel bringing the spiritual entity Sananda into the physical form Tyson.
So you are saying he is the bridge, he is the portal itself.
That is the most structurally sound interpretation based on the internal logic of these two sources. If the word has to cross the cosmic abyss to get to Earth, and Palmer is the word in form as his doctrine claims, then this diagram is literally a map of his own existence.
He is the machinery that bridges the gap between heaven and earth.
He is the true tree of life.
That perfectly frames the concept of contemplating the patterns from the modern Holy Bible. It seems like this diagram is an attempt to update and streamline the old mystical maps.
It is drastically simplifying them. The old maps, which we are about to dig into, are incredibly complex. They are completely saturated with paths, colors, angels, demons, passwords, numeric values.
This modern diagram is just clean. It is a single sentence. It flows effortlessly.
It aligns perfectly with his doctrine of rest. You do not need to struggle to climb the ladder of the tree. The sentence just flows down to you automatically.
But the ancients, they definitely felt they needed to climb that ladder, and they brought a lot of heavy gear to do it.
They brought literal swords.
Which is the perfect transition into the ancient machinery. Because when we open the Key of Solomon, nobody in this book is just receiving anything passively. They are working incredibly hard for it.
They are sweating blood for it. The Key of Solomon is one of the most famous and influential grimoires in human history. The version we have in our source stack is the Mather's translation. And the tone here is light years away from TJP's Manifesto of Peace.
It is definitely not rest. It is extreme active work.
It is ritual magic with a capital M, and it's attributed to King Solomon, another monarch. So we have a direct comparison of royal styles here.
King Tyson says, "I am the vessel, just rest." King Solomon says, "I am the master, you will obey."
Solomon is dealing strictly with the government of spirits. Government is absolutely the right word here. It is highly bureaucratic. It is legalistic. Solomon is not asking the spirits nicely to help him out. He is forcefully commanding them through divine authority.
And he uses these tools called pentacles to do it.
Pentacles are the physical seals or talismans that act as badges of authority.
I was reading through the descriptions of these pentacles in the source, and they are terrifyingly specific, like really specific.
Give us an example of what they do.
Okay, let's look at the 7th pentacle of Saturn. The text says it is for exciting earthquakes.
Very casual, just your everyday personal earthquake inducer.
Right. It literally says, seeing that the power of each order of angels herein invoked is sufficient to make the whole universe tremble. That is not subtle mystical contemplation. That is a weapon of mass destruction.
And you have to look at the why. Why would a king or a magician want to summon an earthquake? In the ancient magical worldview, power over the physical forces of nature was the ultimate proof of spiritual authority. If you could shake the earth, you were aligned with the power of God.
And then you have something like the third pentacle of Jupiter. It defends and protects the user, but it also explicitly mentions acquiring riches. And the fifth pentacle of Jupiter is used for assured visions. The text actually references Jacob's ladder.
It says Jacob, being armed with this pentacle, beheld the ladder which reached unto heaven. This connects us straight back to the tree of life diagram.
The ladder is the tree.
But notice the fundamental difference in the methodology here. In the 2026 diary, the tree is a diagram of a naturally flowing sentence. In the Key of Solomon, the vision of the ladder is a locked door that you have to force open using a very specific geometric seal drawn at a specific astrological hour, invoking specific names of God.
Jacob needed the pinnacle, the technology, to even see the ladder.
Exactly. And the names inscribed on these pentacles are immense. The first pentacle of the sun contains the countenance of Shaddai and the great angel Metatron.
Metatron is an absolute heavyweight in angelology.
He is often called the Prince of Countenances. In many Kabbalistic traditions, he is the archangel who sits at the very top of the tree of life in Keter.
So Solomon is invoking the absolute highest possible authorities just to compel lower terrestrial spirits to do his bidding.
And he is not doing this casually in his living room. The text has an entire section on the necessary tools of authority.
You need a magic sword or a specific knife.
And they have to be rigorously consecrated. You cannot just grab a kitchen knife. The text refers to it as the sword of art. It physically represents the imposing will of the magician.
It also mentions the staff. It says it has to be made of elder wood, and the wand has to be hazel cut from virgin wood. What exactly does virgin wood mean in this context?
It means wood that has never been cut or used for any other human purpose. Usually, it implies a fresh branch of a single year's growth. It has not been corrupted by time or mundane utility. In the logic of sympathetic magic, purity equals extreme potency.
Speaking of purity, the text spends a lot of time talking about the robes and the circle.
The magic circle is completely non-negotiable in Solomonic magic. You have to draw a circle on the ground, often 9 feet in radius, painstakingly inscribed with specific names of God.
Why is the circle so important?
It is your only protection. The text implies heavily that the spirits you are summoning are highly dangerous and rebellious. If you step a single toe outside that inscribed circle during the operation, you are entirely vulnerable to them.
You are creating a tiny fortress of order in the middle of a dimension of chaos.
It is a terrifying worldview, especially compared to Maranatha Rest. It is the worldview of the working magician versus the worldview of the passive mystic.
The magician has to fight for control in a hostile universe. The mystic just surrenders to the flow of a benevolent one. Exactly. And speaking of fighting for control, we absolutely have to talk about the Sword of Moses. Because if Solomon is heavy, this text is just fiery.
The Sword of Moses represents an even older tradition in many ways. And we need to clarify right off the bat, the sword here is not a physical metal blade.
Right. The text, which is translated by Yuval Harari, states clearly that the sword is a massive list of holy names.
It is a sword made of words. It is a highly specific sequence of divine names and angelic titles that the text claims was given directly by God to Moses on the mountain. The core concept is that he who possesses the sword, meaning the person who knows and can correctly pronounce these names, commands the angels themselves.
It is like finding the root password for the angelic server.
That is a perfect analogy, and the hierarchy it describes to manage this server is massive. It lists a 4-leveled bureaucracy of 13 princes.
And the text specifically mentions that the lower princes are appointed over the sword in the Torah. That is a fascinating link. Magic and religious law are tied directly together.
In this specific worldview, yes. The Torah is the formal law of God, and the sword is the raw power of God. They are just two sides of the same coin. You cannot responsibly wield the power without strictly adhering to the law.
And who is at the very top of this hierarchy? Who is the boss of these 13 princes?
The text names a supreme figure, HYWPSQTYH.
I am not even going to attempt to pronounce that.
You definitely shouldn't. It is likely a complex permutation of divine names. The text says, before whom all the angels kneel and bow down and prostrate themselves every day. It represents the ultimate, unapproachable authority in the universe.
And what do you actually do with this sort of names. The list of practical uses in the text is incredibly broad.
It is remarkably pragmatic. It is essentially blue-collar magic. You can use it for healing a fever. You can use it for binding a demon that is causing illness. But there's one specific use case that always stands out to me: binding a boat.
Buying a boat, like parking it at a dock.
Or stopping it from sailing away. Or perhaps protecting it from sinking in a storm. Think about the historical context here, the ancient Mediterranean or Near East. Sea travel is incredibly dangerous. You have pirates, unpredictable storms, leviathans.
If you are a merchant, your entire life savings, your family's future is sitting on that wooden boat.
So this ritual was spiritual insurance. You adjure the prince of the sea to not let the boat sink. It shows that this magic was not just high-minded spiritual contemplation, it was practical technology used to solve daily life or death problems.
But there's a massive warning label attached to this technology.
Huge. The text sternly warns that the operator must be entirely purified before even attempting to use the sword.
If you are unclean, which involves violating very complex ritual purity laws, you face the direct danger of being burned by the fire of the angels.
Literally consumed. The angels in this text are made of pure fire and intellect. They are not friendly humans with wings. If you approach them without the proper spiritual insulation, the purity, and the exact names, you just get burned alive.
This connects so perfectly to Psalm 97, which is also included in our source stack today.
Yes. Fire goes before him and consumes his foes on every side. The hills melt like wax before the Lord.
So in this ancient worldview, God is essentially radioactive.
God is a nuclear reactor. You do not try to hug a nuclear reactor. You respect it deeply, and you follow the strict safety protocols. The Sword of Moses is basically the safety manual for the divine reactor.
So we have this incredible spectrum of belief systems on the table. On one extreme end, we have the Sword of Moses, where God is fire angels are lethal, and you need the exact password or you burn. In the middle, we have the Key of Solomon, where spirits are rebellious, and you need a geometric fortress and a badge of office to command them safely.
And then on the other extreme end, we have the King's Doctrine. God is at love, the work is completely finished, just take a nap.
And yet all three of these sources are talking about the exact same fundamental mechanism. How to bring the immense power of the up there down to the down here.
Let's move into synthesizing these sources. We really need to put these three kings in a room together and see what happens.
We have King Solomon, the ancient master of wisdom. We have the biblical God, or Christ, the King of Kings, and the source of the sword. And we have King Tyson Jay Palmer, the modern digital claimant.
It creates a fascinating pattern of authority. Let's compare their methods. King Solomon uses wisdom and tools. His authority is derived from God, but it is exercised entirely through technology. The pentacles, the circle, the consecrated sword. He operates as a technician.
The biblical God in the Moses text is the raw source. He freely gives the sword of names to Moses. He is the consuming fire.
And then King Tyson Jay Palmer claims something entirely different. He claims to literally be the vessel.
He does not use tools at all. He uses identity.
Yes, pure identity and decree. Notice that TJP does not seem to be performing any kind of ritual in his manifesto. He is simply issuing a proclamation. He says, I am the vessel. He says, Sananda is Tyson. He is not begging the angels to help him. He is declaring that he is the help.
That is an incredibly bold theological move. And it's really the ultimate evolution of the three-letter initial concept we flagged earlier. I want to dig deeper into that.
The source material specifically highlighted TJP.
Right. In the document, he signs off explicitly as Tyson Jay Palmer, Theophilus James Peter, TJP.
Think about the ancient texts we just dissected. In Hebrew mysticism, the three-letter root is the foundation of everything. The true name of God, the Tetragrammaton, is built on elemental letter sounds. The Schema Hamphorash in the Solomonic text is the 72 names of God, all derived from letters.
The universe is encoded in letters.
And Tyson prominently displays TJP. He is consciously aligning his own legal name with the ancient magical structure of reality. He is implying that his initials are a name of power.
By explicitly listing out Theophilus James Peter, he is handing you the etymology of his own divine power. Lover of God, supplanter rock.
It sounds incredibly egocentric on the surface, but if you look back at the 2026 diagram, it fits the internal logic flawlessly.
If he is the portal in the middle of the tree of life?
Exactly. If he's the portal, then his name is the password to get through it. He has essentially become the sword himself. He's not wielding the weapon, he is the weapon.
Let's look at that tree of life diagram again in this specific context. The Key of Solomon text explicitly mentions the 10 Sephiroth arranged in the form of the tree of life. And it talks about the 32 paths of Yetzirah.
Right. The ancient fragment included in the Solomon translation breaks the universe down mathematically. It says number, weight, and measure. It talks about the columns and the schema. It is a highly structural engineering view of the cosmos. It views the universe as a complex building or a machine.
But the 2026 diagram keeps the basic geometric structure, the circles, the paths, but it completely changes the labels. Instead of abstract concepts like wisdom and understanding, we get the literal sentence in the beginning.
It shifts the entire paradigm from a map of static states of being to a map of dynamic narrative flow. In the beginning, God created. It strongly suggests that the universe is a story, not just a structure.
And if the universe is a story, then the King Tyson is the narrator.
That is a massive distinction. Structure versus story. In a geometric structure, you have to climb. In a story, you just have to turn the page.
Or realize you are the main character the story's about.
I want to go back to the rest versus struggle concept for a minute, because reading through the Sword of Moses, dealing with those 13 princes, having to adjure them one by one perfectly without making a mistake, it sounds absolutely exhausting.
It is exhausting. It is historically called the great work in magical traditions for a reason. You are fighting against the immense inertia of the universe. You are fighting against your own human impurity.
And Palmer just says, nah.
Palmer says the fighting is over. Maranatha. The Lord has already come.
If the king is already here sitting on the throne, you do not need to fight the guards to get into the castle. The gates are permanently open.
So if we look at the true tree of life strictly through the lens of the king's doctrine, the tree is not a ladder you have to climb anymore.
No. In this modern view, the tree is simply a delivery system. It flows downwards effortlessly. Keter, which is in, flows directly to Malkuth, which is earth. The divine spiritual nature, Sananda, flows directly into the human vessel, Tyson. It is entirely about passive reception, not active achievement.
Which really brings us to for you, the listener, we have covered a lot of very strange ground today. We have Japanese declarations of messiahship, we have red portals and future diaries, and we have ancient angels that will burn you alive if you do not wash your hands properly. Why does any of this matter to someone listening right now?
I think the real breakthrough moment here is recognizing the universal human attempt to map out the connection between the source and the physical world. Whether you are a mystic in the 3rd century or a manifesto writer in 2026, you are trying to solve the exact same problem. Why are we here, and how do we connect to the larger reality?
How do we get from Keter to Malkuth? From God to earth?
Exactly. All of these strange sources are just different maps of that exact same territory. The Sword of Moses maps it out as a terrifying hierarchy of dangerous celestial officials you have to bribe or command. The King's Doctrine maps it out as a finished, relaxed family reunion.
It also teaches us something really valuable about navigating information overload. Just looking at the diagrams in the Key of Solomon is completely overwhelming, the sheer amount of detail.
But if you can look past the surface noise and find the underlying structure, the human attempt to bring order out of chaos, it becomes understandable.
Whether it is drawing a magic circle on the floor or labeling a cosmic abyss on a notepad, the goal is always to define a safe space where meaning can actually happen.
We all do this every single day. We create boundaries, we use language, which are our words of power to shape our personal reality. When you walk into a meeting room and you confidently set the agenda, you are practically casting a circle. You are defining the terms of reality for that next hour.
That is a really great analogy. And when you declare, I am the one who handles this project, you are issuing a mini proclamation. You are claiming to be the king of that specific domain.
We are all operating on these exact same ancient patterns. We just do not usually use bat's blood or call ourselves Pendragon while we do it.
Usually.
Usually, yes.
One thing that really sticks with me from all of this is the immense power of the word. In the diary diagram, the entire creation is just a sentence. In the Moses text, the ultimate power is a list of names. In Palmer's text, it is a digital proclamation.
Language truly is the ultimate magic. It is how we encode completely non-physical abstract ideas into physical sound waves or pixels on a screen, and then transfer them into another human being's mind to literally change their perception of reality. That is sorcery.
So whether you actually believe TJP is the physical vessel of Sananda or not, the pattern still holds true. He is using words to shape an entirely new reality for whoever chooses to follow him.
And he is utilizing the oldest trick in the esoteric playbook, connecting himself to an ancient established lineage. By calling himself King James VII and Arthur Pendragon, he is essentially borrowing the massive battery power of those old cultural myths to charge up his new modern machine.
It is a theological remix.
A remix of divine authority.
Now, before we wrap this up, I want to double back to something we touched on earlier, but I do not think we fully exploded it.
Yeah.
The portal in the diagram, that red circle.
The cosmic abyss.
I am looking at the image of the diary again and zooming in. We mentioned it corresponds to Dot, but let's really explain Dot for anyone who hasn't spent a decade studying Hermeto-Kabbalah. Why is it usually invisible on most trees, and why did he choose to make it explicitly red here?
In standard Hermetic Kabbalah, Dot is the false sephira. It is not an actual sphere of existence like the other 10. It is a state of becoming or transition. It is the precise point where the pure divine light has to cross the abyss of absolute nothingness in order to become physically manifest.
And it is deeply associated with forbidden knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil from the Garden of Eden.
Exactly. Dot is the ultimate gateway. By coloring it red and boldly labeling it, the portal Palmer is intensely highlighting both the extreme danger and the immense power of that transition point. Red in esoteric traditions often symbolizes blood life or the culmination of alchemical fire. In alchemy, achieving the Red King stage is the perfection of the great work.
So if Tyson is literally the portal, he's claiming to be the Red King. He's claiming to be the alchemical perfection of humanity.
It fits his internal narrative flawlessly, and it perfectly explains why he does not need the sword of Moses. If you are the portal itself, you do not need to search for a key to open the door. You simply are the door.
I am the door. That is a direct biblical quote, isn't it?
John chapter 10, verse 9. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved. It brilliantly reinforces the Christ figure narrative he is building with the Sananda identity. Sananda, the door, the portal. It is all incredibly internally consistent.
It is consistent, but it's also an incredibly high-stakes game to play. Because if you publicly claim to be the door, and you end up leading people to the wrong place...
But then you are not a savior, you are just a trap.
Let's look back at the Key of Solomon with that specific danger in mind. Solomon had massive safeguards in place. The inscribed circle, the exact divine names. He knew very well that opening spiritual doors was extremely risky business.
Solomon was a harsh realist. He understood that the spiritual world was populated by powerful entities that did not necessarily have humanity's best interests at heart. The key is literally a survival manual on how to deal with difficult personalities in the spirit realm.
Dealing with difficult personalities sounds a lot like corporate middle management.
It is remarkably similar. You have the emperor, who might be Lucifer or Satan in some texts, or God in others. And then you have the princes and the dukes. You have to memorize their exact rank, their specific office, what they are capable of doing, and exactly what kind of bribe they will accept.
Bribes, like actual payouts.
Offerings, incense, specific fumigations. You burn very specific scents at specific times to attract them or appease them. It is a completely transactional relationship. I give you this pleasant smell, you go find me that hidden treasure.
And Palmer's modern approach is just, I already own the treasure, I own the smell, I own the spirits.
It is entirely non-transactional. It is the attitude of the heir apparent. The king does not need to bribe the household servants. The king simply commands, or in this case, simply exists, and the servants automatically align themselves.
There's a really specific detail in the Key of Solomon about planetary hours. We sort of skimmed past it, but it is actually crucial for understanding the ancient machinery argument.
Oh, it is the main engine of the whole Solomonic system. You cannot just decide to do a ritual whenever you happen to have free time.
Right. The text explicitly says the days and hours are divided into planetary influences.
If you want to perform a work of Saturn, like causing that earthquake we talked about, or maybe doing something involving restriction or binding, you absolutely must do it in the hour of Saturn on the day of Saturn, which is Saturday.
And what happens if you try to do it on a Tuesday?
Then you are swimming aggressively against the current. Tuesday is ruled by Mars. Mars is war and fire. If you try to do a restrictive, slow, cold Saturn ritual during a fiery, aggressive Mars hour, the ritual will completely fail, or worse, it will backfire on you.
So the ancients viewed time itself as having distinct flavors or qualities.
Time was highly qualitative, not just quantitative. 8 in the morning is not just universally 8 in the morning. It is the hour of Mercury or the hour of Jupiter, depending on the day. The entire universe changes its fundamental flavor every single hour.
In Palmer's 2026 diary diagram, does it seem to care about astrological time?
Well, it has a date written on it. Tuesday, 24th February. Tuesday is Mars Day.
Horus, the god of war.
And yet the core message of his doctrine is peace and rest.
Is that a glaring contradiction, or is it a deliberate conquest?
It is highly likely a conquest of war. He is effectively saying, I am standing right in the middle of the day of Mars, and I am declaring absolute peace. It subjugates the ancient astrological influence entirely to his modern royal decree.
That is a massive power move. He is saying, I don't care what the ancient stars say. I say it is Sunday now.
Exactly. The mystic transcends the astrology completely. The working magician is forced to operate within the confines of the astrology.
I want to drill back down on the Sword of Moses hierarchy for a second. The 13 princes.
The text is meticulously specific about their names and their exact cosmic roles.
Can we read a few of them just to really give the listener the flavor of the absolute alienness of this ancient text?
Certainly. The text lists the Prince of the Faith, the Prince of the Torah, the Prince of the Sword.
And the actual names associated with them are just strings of consonants.
They look like typos. S-G-R-D-D-E-R-D-I-D, S-M-N-E-Show, P-E-C-Q-M-I. They are practically unpronounceable in casual conversation. They are explicitly meant to be vibrated, not just spoken aloud.
Vibrated how? Like chanting.
In applied magical practice, you do not just say a divine name, you intone it. You let the sound physically resonate in your chest cavity and your skull. It acts as a sonic key vibrating at a specific frequency.
So when the text refers to wielding the sword, it really means executing a highly specific playlist of these physical vibrations.
A sonic playlist that acts as a reality-altering weapon. If you hit the exact right frequency, the fabric of reality shifts to accommodate your will.
And the binding a boat ritual. I'm still completely stuck on the practicality of that. Why focus such immense cosmic power on a boat?
Because that was the reality of their survival. If you lived in the ancient Mediterranean, travel was a terrifying gamble. If you are a trader, everything you own is on that fragile wooden structure.
So this magic was their only form of insurance against the chaos of nature.
It was desperate, practical, spiritual insurance. I adjure you, Prince of the Sea, do not let my livelihood sink today.
And Palmer's modern insurance policy is simply the realization that I am Sananda.
I am already safe. It is an entirely internal insurance policy. It perfectly protects the psyche from the fear of the storm, whereas the ancient sword attempts to protect the actual physical cargo from the water.
That is a profound evolutionary shift in human thought. External physical protection versus internal psychological assurance.
It beautifully mirrors the broader shift in world religions over the last 2,000 years. Humanity slowly moved from sacrificing physical animals on stone altars to appease an angry external god, to practicing internal prayer and meditation to align a quiet internal spirit.
And TJP is just taking that historical evolution to its absolute extreme logical conclusion. He is saying, I am the god.
It is the inevitable endpoint of the idea that the kingdom of heaven is within you. If it is entirely within you, eventually someone is going to stand up and admit, well, then I must be the king of that kingdom.
Unless you are just meant to be the caretaker of the garden.
Which is the counter-argument, yes.
We have covered the who, the how, and the why of all this, but I really want to talk about the where, the Internet Archive.
The location of the modern text is fascinating.
The king's doctrine wasn't dug out of a hidden cave at Qumran in a clay jar. It was deliberately uploaded to a public digital library.
The Internet Archive is essentially the modern equivalent of the cave. It is where we actively store our collective human memory. By purposefully placing his doctrine there, he is permanently entering his claim into the indestructible record of humanity.
It is a massive claim to historical relevance. He is saying, I was here, and this is my truth forever.
And unlike a fragile scroll hidden in the desert, it is instantly accessible to billions of people across the entire world the second it is uploaded. Maranatha, as a global digital broadcast.
Which loops us right back to Sananda wa Tyson Da, the Japanese phrase.
A globally recognized language format deployed on a globally accessible internet platform.
Do you think his choice to use Japanese implies he is targeting a specific audience? Or is it just an internet aesthetic?
The anime aesthetic is a very real possibility here. The modern intersection of hyper-online internet culture, anime tropes, and esoteric spirituality is a very strange, rapidly growing demographic.
A place where James Bond and Goku and Jesus all theoretically hang out in the exact same Discord server.
And King Tyson Jay Palmer is claiming to be the head moderator of that server.
A moderator of the apocalypse.
It is arguably a better title than the Horseman.
Very true. Okay, I want to leave everyone listening with a final thought to really chew on after this is over. We have spent the hour talking about consuming fire and protective circles and the modern theology of rest.
In the Sword of Moses, your only chance of survival is being ritually pure enough to withstand the burning fire of the angels. In the Key of Solomon, your survival depends entirely on staying inside the geometric boundaries of the circle. And in the King's Doctrine, you survive simply by accepting the decree that you are already perfectly safe.
So the ultimate question is this. Is this a genuine spiritual evolution? Is humanity's relationship with the divine naturally moving from actively commanding the dangerous forces of the universe to simply embodying a peaceful one?
If the ancient sword is truly no longer needed because the cosmic war is permanently over, as Palmer confidently claims, then what exactly does the Kabbalistic tree of life become today? It stops being a grueling vertical ladder for spiritual soldiers to climb, and maybe it just becomes a fruit tree for us to sit under in a garden.
But, and here is the real kicker to think about. If you willingly drop your sword and you step completely outside of your protective circle because you truly believe the war is over, what happens if you are wrong?
That is the terrifying ultimate risk of the doctrine of rest. It assumes the victory is absolutely real. If it is not, you are just standing completely exposed in the open without a weapon.
And that is a thought that will definitely keep me up tonight. Thank you so much for taking this incredibly strange journey with us today, deep into the mind of King Tyson Jay Palmer and the ancient grimoires.
It has been an absolutely fascinating deep dive.
We will see you all next time. Watch out for the cosmic abyss.
And definitely mind the portal.
Maranatha.
Maranatha.